Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Homestead City Council meeting. Today is Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, and it is 6 p.m. Pursuant to Executive Order 20-93, issued by Governor DeSantis and the City of Homestead's local state of emergency due to COVID-19, this will be a virtual council meeting. The virtual meeting can be viewed online on the City Access channel or live stream at cityofhomestead.com/public meeting. The public may also participate live during the virtual meeting utilizing video conference via WebEx events or toll-free conference call number. Please go to cityofhomestead.com/calendar for specific details and instructions on participation using video and telephonic conferencing. The city will be accepting public comments as part of the virtual meeting, which can be emailed to public comments at cityofhomestead.com. Public comments are limited to 300 words per comment. The comments on specific agenda items should include your name, address, and the item you would like to comment on together with your comment. Those can be submitted up until noon on Tuesday, August 18th, and reviewed by council as part of the record. General public comments can be submitted up to 30 minutes after the end of a virtual council meeting and will be included in the minutes. Further details and instructions concerning public participation in the virtual meeting are referenced in the City of Homestead Virtual Meetings Quick Start Guide located on the city website. It's my understanding that as of a couple of hours ago, there were no public comments that had been submitted at that point. To the extent they are, they will be included in the published minutes of this meeting. Madam Clerk, let's do a roll call, please.
Councilwoman Avila. Councilwoman Avila. Councilman Shelley.
Here.
Councilman Ross.
Here.
Councilwoman Bailey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers.
Here.
Mayor Lawson.
We're here also. Thank you. Okay, I see that we have an additional item under additions, deletions, and deferrals under Addendum 1, our number 2944. Madam Manager, is that you?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that would be me, and we can read it now if you like. Matt can read the title.
Let's go ahead and do
that. Okay. Matt?
No, let's go ahead and do that.
I thought Matt was going to read the title, but I'll go ahead.
It is. I'm sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. This is an ordinance for second reading. It's an ordinance of the City of Homestead of Florida, amending the City Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 28 Utilities, Article 1 in general, Section 28-15, Annual Consumer Price Index Adjustment of Water and Sewer Rates, Fees, and Charges, amending the mechanism for Annual Consumer Price Index Adjustment in rates, fees, and charges concerning water and or sewer services, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Mayor,
thank you.
Section 28-13, the Annual Consumer Price Index, CPI adjustment of water and sewer rates, fees and charges were first established in 2002, with the intent that the rates would be annually adjusted by such index. Pursuant to this section, the rates were last CPI adjusted in 2008. The purpose of this amendment is twofold. First, to change the current CPI table from all items to the water and sewer trash collection services CPI table to better mirror the operations whose rates are being adjusted, and to clarify that any and all CPI adjusted rate changes pursuant to this ordinance will require council approval via resolution. Staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the proposed ordinance amending Section 28-13 Annual Consumer Price Index, adjustment of water and sewer rates, fees, and charges. And Mayor, this is not an increase in the water and sewer rates. This is just to change the CPI type, and the water and sewer increase will be before council in September.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Anything from members of the council? Do we have a motion to approve? It's second reading, correct?
Move it, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Moved by Vice Mayor. That was Vice Mayor, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. Second by Councilman Roth. Is there any further discussion? All right. None appearing. Would anyone wish to be registered as a no vote on this matter? Okay. None appearing, then the item is passed unanimously. Before we go any further, I received a message that someone was trying to log on through the clerk's site to potentially make comments when appropriate, and that they're being directed to YouTube. Are comments not live comments not available, or is there something that we can have them do to get into the WebEx system to take part in the meeting?
Mayor.
Yeah. Okay. Next item is tab 1, the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'm sorry, it's Jared here. Yes,
Yeah.
people should be able to log in and make comments on the items. I'm following up on my phone with Yanil right now to find out what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, the Public Art Committee chairs, I got word from a third party that she's trying to log in and keeps getting directed to YouTube, and I understand that Councilwoman Avila is not able to unmute. I don't know if there's something on your end that we can do there. Thank you. Okay. We have tab 1, the consent, tabs 1 through 6, the consent agenda. Do we have a motion for approval?
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Roth.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. Are there any further comments on the consent agenda? Any further comments on the consent agenda? All right, none appearing. Would anyone wish to be registered as a no vote on the approval of the consent agenda? All right, motion or the consent agenda is approved. All right, next item. Mr. White?
Yes, Mayor. Can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear. Thank
All
you.
right, great. Thank you. Yes, this is the quasi-judicial section of the agenda. Please be advised the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment upon any of these items, please indicate the item number you would like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for persons to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentations on each item. Swearing in, all testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to either be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the counsel to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. The full agenda packet on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2-591, any lobbyist must register before addressing the council on any of the following items. At this time, I'd ask council members to disclose any ex parte communications concerning any items on the quasi-judicial agenda.
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Shelley, Councilman Shelley.
Yes, I didn't have any specific discussions with on the COPART items, on the ones that are under the quasi-judicial, but as part of the prior legislative items, going back a few months, likely there was some discussion or at least pictures of the site plan in there. So just for full, I guess, safety purposes, I may or may not have had a conversation about the quasi-judicial ones.
Thank you, Councilman Shelley. As for myself, since the last council meeting wherein we considered both the legislative and the quasi-judicial items connected with COPART, I did have a couple of conversations with council for COPART with respect to the legislative end of this application package.
As well for Councilman Roth.
And for me as well.
And Councilwoman Avila.
Okay. All right, you gotta take care of everybody. Thank you.
Mayor, Jerry
Yeah.
here again.
Yes, Jerry.
Hey, anyone who wishes to comment on the meeting needs to go to the city calendar and click on the meeting, and there's the instructions how they can log in so they can make comments. The other person seems to be logging into the live broadcast. That's why it's redirecting them to YouTube. Okay?
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mayor, hearing no further ex parte communications on the quasi-judicial items, at this time I would ask the clerk to swear in any persons who wish to speak or testify on the quasi-judicial items this evening.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I,
Tracy Slavens,
hereby swear or affirm
hereby swear and affirm
that the information I present shall be the truth
I present shall be the truth
and nothing but the truth,
and nothing but the truth.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm going to ask that we need to take things a little bit out of order this evening. Tab 7 is a rezoning, and it is related to tab 11. Tab 11 is the small-scale comprehensive plan for the subject property, and tab 7 is the rezoning. I could, if you'd like, introduce both of these items collectively. You could have a discussion on them, but then we would need to take a vote on the comprehensive plan amendment first before the rezoning.
Sure.
So is that the pleasure of what you all would like?
Yeah, let's just do that. We'll,
Okay.
if you'll present both of them, and then we'll take it in the proper logistical order.
Okay. Tab 11 this evening is the first reading of an ordinance in the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan future land use map designation requested by Kings Highway LLC for 3 adjacently located parcels of land consisting of approximately 0.58 acres from light commercial use LCU to low residential use LRU for property generally located north of Northwest 15th Street, east of Northwest 2nd Avenue, south of Northwest 16th Street, and west of Northwest 1st Avenue, as legally described in Exhibit A, providing for conflict, severability, inclusion in the comprehensive plan, and for an effective date. And the corresponding application, tab 7, is the first reading of a rezoning, an ordinance of the City of Homestead approving the rezoning and release of the recorded amended covenant running with the land requested by Kings Highway LLC from professional business restricted B1A zoning district to one family R1 zoning district for 3 adjacently located parcels of land consisting of approximately 0.58 acres, generally located north of Northwest 15th Street, east of Northwest 2nd Avenue, south of Northwest 16th Street, and west of Northwest 1st Avenue, as legally described in Exhibit A, providing for conflict, severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Cordino, I guess you're next.
Yes, sir. The staff recommends that the mayor and council approve the proposed ordinance requesting this small-scale future land use map amendment from the light commercial use, or LCU, to the low residential use, or the LRU. The LRU land use designation is generally implemented through the one-family, one-acre state A1s, one-family half-acre estate A2s, or the one-family R1 and the government property respective zoning districts. And that's the application we'll get to next, is the rezoning. The change in the future land use map designation is going to allow for the rezoning of the properties to the R1 district, and this is going to permit the construction of single-family dwelling units on each of the platted lots. The Planning and Zoning Board did review this at its August 12th meeting and voted to recommend approval 5-0. So I'll be here for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cordino. Is the applicant present? Or is anyone on behalf of the applicant? I know that they had some lobbyist registrations a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't see their names reflected on the participant list, but if the applicant called into the meeting, if you could please raise your hand by hitting *3.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, is that you, Councilman Fletcher?
Yes, I just wanted to let you know for the record I'm on.
Very good. Thank you. Good to hear from you.
Mr. Mayor, I don't see the applicant raising their hand, so they might not be on the meeting.
All right. Typically then, even with a recommendation of approval, does staff typically support this moving forward without the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so council members, any questions, comments? Motion for approval?
Mayor?
Mr. Shelley, Councilman Shelley.
Thank you. The concern I have with this particular application, I support going from commercial to residential, especially the particular parcel that's been identified. It makes sense for that to be a residential use. The only concern I somewhat have is the size of the lots and the type of the houses that will be going onto that property. I know as part of our discussion with the moratorium, there was some discussion about changing some of those issues in the Northwest, because one of the things we've had problems with in the Northwest is the infill, where you'll have these lots that are vacant and ultimately will get developed. And in this case, we have going now to LRU. So the plan is to put three units or three houses on, just a little over half an acre of property. And so you're going to end up with small yards and small houses related to that. So there's some concern that I have. I know we talked about potentially reevaluating that as part of any type of moratorium discussion if there ever was one. And so I guess I have some concerns that by not having more clarity on what that might look like or what the minimum lot sizes might be, that ultimately if we approve these rezonings as a matter of right, once it's approved, they can essentially come in and build that minimum lot, whatever that happens to be, in the Northwest at this point, which is, I think, is the same uniformly throughout the entire city. And knowing what that's looked like in the past, you're going to end up with some pretty small pieces of property or land with some small houses. So if staff can maybe weigh in a little bit on that, either James or Joe.
Yeah, I believe this is a situation where you have one 12,000 square foot lot and some that are below 7,000. I'm going to ask Michelle to weigh in. I think the minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet. Michelle, are you on the line? Is that correct?
Yes,
or David?
Mr. Corey, that's correct. The minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet.
So it appears that two lots are currently below the minimum lot size right now, and I don't know if the applicant would have to come in and replat those lots or how they would deal with that, because right now you couldn't build on two of those lots. Is that correct?
So the applicant actually submitted for building permits, and I didn't review the permits myself, but it was my understanding that each of the lots met minimum standards. To really answer your question correctly, I would have to go back and look at the proposed permits that were submitted to the department.
Okay, I wasn't aware that they had done that, but yeah, I think that we may have an issue because when I reviewed the files, the lots were, two of the lots were below 7,000 square feet. It appeared in the report.
Well, because I would feel more comfortable moving forward, but I know it's first reading, so I may be okay moving forward with it as we get more information, with the caveat that I may not ultimately support it, not because I don't think it's better to have residential there than commercial, but if of the lots that are already platted, if two of them are unbuildable and it's going to require the applicant to ultimately come back in and replat and give us ability to that point to maybe better control what the size of the lots and the houses look like and the product, then I'm more comfortable moving forward now. My concern was approving this, and then ultimately, as a matter of right, they come back and they build, and we have no way at that point really to legally, potentially maybe end up with a better product that maybe fits in a little bit better with the neighborhood. So that's my concern.
Yeah, we'll answer those questions before the second reading in the next week. But my understanding, and I'm looking at one of the lots right now, one of the lots is, I think both of the lots are 6,750 square feet. And so I think that's below the minimum.
Right. So your belief now is that if this was approved, I know it's first reading, but we would have another bite at the apple to make sure that we have some sort of say in what the product looks like, because ultimately they'd have to come back for either a special exception or we would at that point be able to tell them that they had to comply, which may require them to be 2 houses instead of 3.
Yeah, we will make sure that we get those answers before the second reading.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Shelley, and I shared your concerns. It's my understanding that it's not only 7,500 square feet, but a minimum frontage of 75 feet. And I think the drawings that I saw in the package, the 2 outside lots were 50 feet. The middle lot was something like 89 feet. And of course, I had questions as to whether or not the minimum lot sizes were met. And I would hope that the applicant was here to at least talk about perhaps, and I don't think this needs to be done through a replat, but it would be by a deeding such that you at least take and make each of the 3 lots having equal frontage to be somewhat more in line with what's across the street to the north, as well as a lot closer to what our minimum standards are. They also referenced in their letter, clean, modern looking structures. And, I was looking forward to the opportunity to see what they had in mind. And certainly I don't want to go down the old fashioned road of denying this because they're not here. And I guess we do have a second bite at the apple next month if these 2 items go forward. But for myself, I'd like them, staff to let's look at what can be done to make these lots have equal frontage, what that would look like in terms of square footage, as well as some of the proposed elevations. It sounds like they kind of got ahead of themselves if they're already applying for building permits before we're finished with the public hearing process.
Yeah, yes, sir. That's true. Typically, they would get through the comp plan and the zoning and get the entitlement to build, and then submit the building permit. So I need to double check that from our office.
Yeah, because my rough calculations, you had 2 50-footers and one that was something like 89 feet wide, and you could at least get 3 that are around 65 feet wide, 63 feet wide, which is significantly better than 50 if council were willing to go down that road. So, council, any further questions or comments or any motion on this matter?
Mayor, if I may, just for a second.
Yeah, Councilman Roth.
Thank you. That was kind of my concern as well. And as you look at an aerial picture through either Miami-Dade.gov or any other site that has the property lines, it's interesting that directly to the north of those properties, those lots are 6,750 square feet that are built out. One as recent as 2006. So it does kind of conform with what's across the street, although I may not agree with the size of those lots at 6,750 square feet. That was going to be my concern. I was thinking that we were going to try to put 4 houses in that area, and that would definitely be under the square footage allowance. And if you separated and replatted those 3 lots, you would be able to probably expand the frontage on each. I'm not sure if it would expand out to if the minimum is the 75 feet frontage, but they do have homes right across the street to the north on 16th Street, which these properties are on, that are 6,750 square foot lots. So I'm not sure when the 7,500 square foot minimum came into place, but there are houses, like I said, directly across the street from them that are 6,750 square feet. But I think I heard enough to, we'll get through this one and we'll wait for the next meeting to come along, and hopefully that the developer will be able to come and talk to us more about what their plans are. That's all. Thank you. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Roth. And, yeah, to answer your question, I think sometime in the early 2000s, we went back, and whether it was the 7,500 square feet or the 75 feet of frontage, and probably incorporated that in the mid-2000s in a Northwest master plan. I think that's what the history there is. But yeah, let's, I guess, in concept, move this forward and hope that the applicant can get online with us next month, and we can see all of the materials that we need to see, and see how far off or on the mark they may be. Any further from council? Is there anyone online who wishes to speak on this matter, either in favor or in opposition?
Hey, Mayor.
Do we have a motion for?
Excuse me, Mayor. We have one hand up, and just for as a reminder, if we want to speak, please raise your hand. And if you're calling in only, please do a *3 to raise your hand, and then a *3 again to lower it. We have Elizabeth Gosia, if she wants to speak.
Okay, Ms. Gosia, please go ahead. Give us your
I
address
apologize.
for the record.
I apologize. It's for the next application. My mistake.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So I don't think we have a motion or a second for approval yet on tab 11, the small scale amendment.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilman Roth. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Bailey. Any further discussion? And again, my affirmative vote is just going to be able to see the information that I'd like to take a look at next month. So is there anyone that wishes to be recorded as a no vote on this matter? Tab 11 for the small scale amendment to the master plan. Nope. Okay, then this item is deemed to be approved, so we would go back to tab 7, the rezoning. Is that correct, Mr. White?
Yes, Mayor, that's correct.
All right, so do we have a motion for approval on the rezoning?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Avila. Have a second?
Second.
Have a second by the Vice Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any further comments from council? Anyone in line from the public? Any member of council wish to be registered as a no vote on this matter? None appearing. This matter is approved. Next item, tab 6.
Yeah, Mayor, the next item on the quasi-judicial agenda is tab 8, followed by 9, which is a site plan and tentative plat for COPART. However, before we get to those items, we need to take up and we need to hear tab 10, which is the second reading of the requested proposed master plan to the Park of Commerce Master Plan Amendment. And if the vote is affirmative to pass that on second reading, then we will take up tab 8 and tab 9. If that is not an affirmative vote to move it, to approve it, then we won't hear tab 89. So if we could take up tab 10 first, under legislative matters, second reading of an ordinance.
Well, lead us through tab 10.
Tab 10.
Scordino.
Tab 10, second reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the master development plan for the Homestead Park of Commerce located within the villages of Homestead, development of regional impact, requested by COPART Connecticut Inc. to allow vehicle storage, no sales, as a permitted use within the Homestead Park of Commerce, providing for conflict, severability, and providing for an effective date. This is second final reading.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Scordino?
Yes, sir. Staff recommends that the mayor and council deny this request to amend the previously approved master development plan for the Homestead Park of Commerce to modify the permitted land uses to include the vehicle storage, no sales as a permitted use. Again, we've gone over this multiple times. We don't believe that that the use is permitted in the Park of Commerce. We believe it's antithetical to what the Park of Commerce wants to look like based on the master plan. Again, this proposed text amendment will result in about 21,000 inoperable or barely operable vehicles on the property. It would have negative visual impacts to the adjacent residential and educational areas, and we believe it would create a blight for the remaining 177 acres within the Park of Commerce. So we're recommending a denial of this.
Thank you, Mr. Corradino. Anyone like to make a presentation on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Tracy Slavens, and I have a presentation that I have recorded and submitted to your ID department to play.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Slavens. My address is 701 Brickell Avenue, Suite 3300, and I'm here virtually tonight on behalf of COPART and joined by Mercy Arce, Ken Huck, Buckley Carson, Alberto Herrera, Itai Cathine, and Frank Escalante, all representing the project. Tonight is the second reading of the PUD and approval of the site plan and tentative plat. We have spent the last month working on the concerns and conditions raised at the last hearing. And we're back tonight with the good news that we have addressed all of these with our revised declaration of restrictions that will provide the guarantees that we will operate in accordance with all of your expectations. So hopefully this will be the last you'll see of us for a while. As I said last month, this is a good project that will result in economic and quality of life benefits for everyone. As a first responder, COPART cleans up our community after a major weather event. On a community basis, they partner with law enforcement for training, they're committing to make important improvements to the Park of Commerce, they'll be sponsoring community events, activities, and youth sports, and this project will not encroach on the Homestead Air Reserve Base. The city is in the midst of determining its budget for 2021 and has realized that there's an acute need for added tax revenues to fund your services and operations. The last 10 years have been a time of significant economic expansion in South Florida and nationwide, but the Park of Commerce remains mostly vacant. The Park of Commerce has been left behind. Finally, the city has attracted an S&P 500 company with COPART. With their purchase of 98 acres, COPART will clean up the Park of Commerce, bring additional tax revenue to the city, add value to the community as a private partner, and most importantly, make a multi-million-dollar investment in Homestead. Development of these parcels is not an easy or inexpensive task. A significant amount of wetlands mitigation is required, as more than 51 of the 60 acres of land on this parcel need to be filled to be usable. This will cost an estimated $15 million to complete. COPART is investing in this site to implement its disaster response model. When severe weather hits, COPART immediately deploys its catastrophic response team to begin recovery efforts. This is particularly important as every year feels like an above-average year for storms. On the bottom right, you'll see what an example of a site looks like from above. It's clean, orderly, and cars are lined up in tandem spaces, not unlike a commercial parking lot. This is the site plan for the north 38-acre parcel. As you can see, no buildings are proposed. Like the aerial image on the previous slide, it is designed to be a clean site with orderly grids for storage. The property will be surrounded by an 8-foot masonry wall and lush landscaping that will serve as an attractive buffer around the entire perimeter of the site. A lake is shown on the west side of the property. Side locks will be installed along the frontage, and the site will be gated and look like the perimeter of a housing development. This plan meets all of the criteria set forth in the Park of Commerce PUD Master Plan and the City Code regulations. This image is the rendered view from Park of Commerce Boulevard. The street trees are green buttonwoods, which grow faster to maturity and will become shade trees much quicker than an oak would. They're 12 feet tall at the time of planting and will ultimately grow to a height of 20 to 25 feet with a canopy approximately 25 feet wide, and they grow at a rate of 12 to 36 inches per year. A collusia hedge will also cover the perimeter wall. This is the street view cross-section. This view demonstrates that with a 60-foot buffer consisting of 5 rows of mature trees, a hedge, and an 8-foot wall, the site will not be visible from the outside, nor will it be visible from any of the housing developments north of Canal or west of Kingman Road. This line of sight drawing shows the viewpoint perspective from the second-story window of a home backing on Canal Drive, 1,800 feet north of the 38-acre parcel. Between the distance and the landscaping, a homeowner will not be able to see inside the property. This line of sight drawing demonstrates the viewpoint perspective from the second-story window of a home backing on Kingman Road, 2,300 feet west of the 38-acre parcel. This shows that, again, with the distance and the landscaping, a homeowner will not be able to see inside the property. This line of sight drawing is from the closest viewpoint perspective, from the second-story window of a home backing on Kingman Road, looking towards the 60-acre parcel, which is only 900 feet away. Again, a homeowner will not be able to see inside the property. As part of the development of the 38-acre parcel, the property requires platting. Tonight you will also be approving this T-plat along with the site plan to map out and define the 38-acre parcel. Since the last hearing, we have revised the declaration of restrictions to address the conditions and concerns that you raised as part of the first reading of the PUD modification. These changes include updating the use restrictions, placing limitations on truck access and leasing, providing for an outside closing date, proffering the improvements to the Park of Commerce entrance feature, providing for terms of the Lake Park improvements, requiring environmental compliance, and ensuring the dedication of Contender Road to the city. The declaration of restrictions continues to restrict the property to the storage uses and those uses already allowed in the Park of Commerce. No junkyard activity or public assembly uses are allowed, and additionally, the property will not be leased to anyone for any use not permitted by the PUD. The site will also be subject to the APZ2 restrictions of the Airport Zoning Ordinance to protect the air reserve base from encroachment and ensure public safety. This condition effectively removes the risk of incompatible uses in the flight path for perpetuity, and the air reserve base and the city will be consent will be required for any modifications to the declaration of restrictions. We have added a limitation on the storage use that prohibits the overflow storage from the Princeton site unless there is a disaster event, and expressly limited the geographic area for receiving vehicles to the South Florida region. We have included a restriction on truck access to the property. The truck route from the south will be via Palm Drive, and the truck route from the north will be via 137th Avenue. There will be no access via Kingman Road. We have included a condition in the declaration of restrictions that requires that closing shall be no later than December 30th. In actuality, if we are approved tonight, the contract requires that closing will be in September. This will ensure that the city can count on the ad valorem tax increase resulting from the sale in the year 2021. COPART is committed to improving the Park of Commerce entrance feature wall, which, as you can see, is in dire need of a facelift. They will give it a new coat of paint, signage, and landscaping, including areca palms behind the wall as an enhanced backdrop. This $25,000 investment will be completed prior to the completion of the construction on the 38-acre parcel. I have drafted a commitment to dedicate the lake park that gives the city 3 years to decide whether it wants to accept the park. If it does, the park will be delivered improved with a path, benches, and landscaping, and COPART will fund $15,000 per year to cover the estimated maintenance costs. If not, the area will become a common area for the Park of Commerce and maintained accordingly. This declaration also includes a new provision relating to environmental compliance to ensure that environmental responsibility is a top priority. All mitigation, permitting, construction, and maintenance will be conducted in accordance with all applicable laws. Lastly, I have updated the Contender Road right-of-way dedication requirement. This road will be conveyed to the city by right-of-way deed and is expected to be on the September agenda for your consideration. As discussed last month and confirmed by our planning expert, Henry Eiler, we think the staff's recommendation for denial of this project is wrong. After reviewing the application file, the staff analysis, and doing his own independent research, Henry concluded that the proposed text amendment, site plan, and tentative plat are consistent with the overall intent, character, development, environmental scale, and principles and guidelines contained in the Homestead Park of Commerce Master Plan. A copy of his report was previously submitted as part of the record. Henry applied the 3 factors for approval of a PUD modification and concluded that the application satisfied the criteria for approval because there are no significant impacts on facilities and services, the amendment is compatible with the other development depicted in the master plan, and the project will have no significant visual impact given that none of the operations will be visible from the outside. Henry concluded that the use is wholly consistent with the Homestead Park of Master Plan, and based on the outcome at first reading, you agreed. We have also spoken at length about the economic benefits of this project. You're in the midst of a budget season that's facing major shortfalls. Now is the time to approve projects that will create economic stimulus and contribute new ad valorem taxes to the city. As highlighted in the Miami Economic Associates study prepared by economist Andrew Dolkart, of the potential users for this site, COPART is ideal. The property is severely limited by the Homestead Air Reserve-based restrictions, which gut the ability to create jobs on this site. Yet COPART's investment in this land will create important indirect jobs in the construction, security, maintenance, hauling, and insurance industries. The fact that the city was able to recruit a $20 billion company to a site that will require upwards of $50 million of investment is a win. No one else would do this, nor could anyone else justify this kind of expense to their shareholders. COPART's purchase of the land will create major new favorable comps in the area and raise the standard for future sales in the Park of Commerce. The report also confirms that COPART's investment will increase the property value by over $30 million. If COPART comes in, the result will yield a revenue increase for the city of $2.75 million over the next 10 years through property taxes alone. And these increases will be effective beginning in fiscal year 2021. This additional revenue is critical during these challenging economic times. And lastly, the report also concludes that the fact that this project will not encroach on the base means one less obstacle to its expansion and to winning the F-35s. As you know, the base contributes over $330 million to our economy with 1,400 full-time jobs and 1,700 reservists. With the F-35s, the economic impact will increase with more jobs and more community investment. The list of benefits resulting from COPART's investment is extensive. In summary, they are recovery immediately after a major weather event, significant improvements to the Homestead Park of Commerce streetscape, $9.2 million tax revenue increases over the next 10 years to the city and county, no traffic during typical peak hours, partnerships with law enforcement and for first responder training, promotion of economic benefits citywide and regionally, partnership and sponsorship of community events and activities, new open space for the benefit of the community, and a protection of the Homestead Air Reserve-based flight path and support of their long-term mission. We have support from members of all sectors of the community. These letters have been submitted as part of the record, but I want to highlight a few of them again. The base found the storage use to be compatible with mission operations. Keysgate has no objections to the project. State Senator Annie Terry Flores expressly voiced her support for the use. Contender Boats sees a benefit in the use. Representatives from municipalities where COPART is an active member in their communities support the work that COPART does in their areas and for their economies. There is a clear consensus that COPART is good for a community. This use is part of a sustainable community's emergency response infrastructure and is wholly appropriate in an industrial park. There is a critical need in South Dade for a CAT site due to the constant threat we're under from catastrophic impacts of storms, floods, and hurricanes. COPART specifically plans for and is a first responder when these events strike. They act fast to expand operations before impact, and they are a front runner in any recovery effort. Approval of this application will bring a major international publicly traded billion-dollar corporation to Homestead. Presence of this S&P 500 company that adds important, albeit indirect jobs, along with the significant street and landscaping improvements, new entrants, and park will serve as a catalyst to attract other businesses to the Park of Commerce. You can't turn down $2.7 million of direct tax revenues, especially when there are no impacts to infrastructure or traffic. This would be a major economic win for Homestead at a critical time. I want to thank you for listening to this presentation and for your consideration of the PUD modification, the site plan, and the tentative plat. With that, I will conclude by asking you to please vote to approve this project and all of its requests. I'm here to answer any questions you may have along with the COPART team, and I would like to reserve some time for rebuttal as needed. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slavens, and I would, do you have anything to add? And then I'll turn it over to council to ask any further questions they may have of the applicant.
I do not, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Fletcher, Councilor Fletcher.
Yeah, if I may. So initially, when this project again was brought to our attention, I really didn't have a feeling one way or the other. I could have went 50-50 based on the application at that time. However, primarily based on resident dissension to this application in the Park of Commerce, which I may add, roughly 80% of the residents that I've spoken to do not approve of this application or don't want it in that location. In addition to the city staff's recommendation for denial of this proposed use and the potential concern for environmental issues, I will not be supporting this application tonight, and I will be supporting staff's recommendation of denial. With that being said, COPART could be a great partner for the community. However, it's my belief that this particular location does not fit within the criteria or the residents' wishes for that location. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher.
Mayor, if I may?
Sure, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been very actively involved in this project and personally invested. I feel like I have spent more time on this than I did on my wedding. You see my notebooks of notes, and I appreciate all of our residents that have reached out to me to discuss. I feel like the majority of the people that I spoke with did see my side. I appreciate staff's position completely, and I do understand the residents, but I cannot still help but feel that this will breathe new life into the Park of Commerce. There are so many areas there right now that already look like an overgrown junkyard. A lot of the parking lots, there are just cars parked everywhere. I've driven through numerous times this last year. And the amount of mitigation that's needed, I still feel like this would be a good thing for the Park of Commerce. I wanted to ask the applicant to please speak on some of the concerns that were brought up, because anytime that I had a new concern that I might have not thought about, staff was there. I thank staff and the applicant for taking my calls and discussing. So, Ms. Slavens, if you can address a few things. There were quite a few in your presentation already, but the application itself states that turnaround on storing the vehicles is 7 to 32 days. What happens after that?
Good evening, Councilwoman Bailey. If I may, the turnaround time varies on the severity of the storm, meaning that the operation of the site activates, but a typical vehicle may be there from 7 to 32 days. It really, the volume will depend on how long it operates. So once a storm event is predicted, the site will start to activate. COPART will send its mobile command unit and start doing local hiring to make sure that they are ready to start recovery as soon as the storm effects start to impact vehicles in the area. So that can actually be potentially during a storm. Cars will be hauled here that are recovered from storm sites and processed by insurance company adjusters who come to work on site for the duration of the activation of the site. Once the car is processed or the vehicle is processed through the insurance company, it is then auctioned online through COPART's platform, which is a global technology platform that connects buyers all over the world, and the cars are shipped out to the future owners. So they do not sit on site past the processing of their title and escrow.
So if they're not sold for more than, if they're not sold within those 32 days, what would happen to that car then, or that vehicle then?
My understanding is that once the storm event recovery process is closed, if there are vehicles that are not sold, they get sent to another site that operates full time.
Do you ever fix or repair any of the vehicles that are brought to the site?
No.
Can you talk a little more about the landscape improvements as far as what was proposed at the previous meeting?
Yes. So I showed a few slides with landscaping, the first of which was the site plan with a colored landscape plan. So as you could see on that image, the trees that are required on site are all pushed up against the perimeter of the property in order to create a lush buffer around the entire perimeter, not just the street frontage. So from any vantage point that you would look at this site, you would see landscaping. And then on the streetscape, we have an enhanced landscaping plan that follows the Park of Commerce Master Plan suggestions and regulations for street trees, hedging, and sidewalks. So you have a double row of trees, which typically you only see a single row of trees as street trees along a sidewalk. Here you have two, one on each side of the sidewalk. And then the Calusia hedge, which will grow very tall and completely cover the wall in the areas where it's not dedicated for some other purpose, such as art. The third aspect of landscaping, which is new, is the rendering that I showed for the entrance feature at the Park of Commerce entrance on Canal Drive. That entrance feature has been sitting untouched for a very long time, and COPART has committed to give it a facelift, put in some lush landscaping, and repaint and letter the signage on that wall. One last thing before I move on. The street trees that we are including on our landscape plan, which are shown as green buttonwood trees, that was a change that was made as part of this process at the suggestion of the homeowners of the Keysgate Community Association. And we took their idea and revised the landscape plan accordingly. We had originally shown oak trees on that street tree design, and we agreed with them that the green buttonwood was a more lush and faster growing tree and more appropriate here for shade.
Thank you. As far as the route that the trucks would use to deliver the cars, you stated that there would be no traffic during peak hours. Can you elaborate on those peak hours?
Yes, the typical peak hour is Monday through Friday. The AM peak hour is 7 to 9 a.m. and the PM peak hour is 4 to 6 p.m. Given that this site does not operate on a regular basis, you do not have the typical incoming and outgoing traffic during the work hours and during the regular work week. This site gets activated when most people have an interrupted schedule because of a hurricane or major storm where the roads are not operating as normal and people's work schedules are not as normal.
And using that new route, that would not affect the current traffic issues during school hours. It will not be on the school road, correct?
Correct.
Regarding the lake in the park, you spoke about that the city would have 3 years to decide if we did want to take it over. I think that was clear. Another big concern is regarding potential fires. You stated that once the site is activated, there would be security staff on site 24/7.
Yes.
What about theft? What do you guys have in place to deter theft?
Well, when the site is activated, there is security full-time, so the theft deterrent is that the site is occupied. There are people there, and typically, especially after a major event, the site is activated 24 hours a day and then tapers off down to reduced hours as the volume reduces. So during that scenario, the theft and trespassing risk is greatly reduced by the presence of employees and security staff. On the off times when the site is not active, it will be secured and locked, and it will be monitored by COPART either through closed caption, closed circuit television, and by regular visits from the staff of the Princeton site.
Another big concern, which was my very first concern, was the potential contamination of our water. And if this does go forward, I do have one additional condition that I would like to add. Maybe Mr. White can help me. I'm not sure if this would be something that would be added on with the site plan or possibly some language in paragraph 9. But the condition would be that there be ongoing inspections that adhere to all the requirements from federal, state, DERM. Mr. White, what do you suggest?
Yeah, Councilman. Currently, under the proposed declaration of restrictions under paragraph 9 that deals with environmental compliance, the owner proffers that they would ensure that all mitigation, permitting, construction, and maintenance of the property would be in accordance with the applicable federal, state, county, and local government environmental regulations. That combined with paragraph 11A, which is city inspection, I think covers the concerns that you have. And I think the condition related to COPART as the applicant with respect to inspections to ensure that the property is in compliance with all the applicable federal, state, county, and city environmental regulations, standards, permits, and permit conditions. I think that would be probably a very good condition that we can make as part of the site plan on the T-plat. And we can add that to the site plan and T-plat. I think we're covered under 9 and 11A. I mean, the applicant can speak to this, but I think that there would not be an objection to language that I can read into the record if we get to the site plan to address your concerns and issues with ongoing inspections of the property by the city or registered agents during normal working hours, that we could enter the property to inspect the property to ensure compliance with all the environmental regulations and conditions that may be applicable.
Okay, great. Then the very last piece that I have for now is that we're sure that it is clear that the owner is responsible for any mitigation that's required to develop the land.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I will reserve for now.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Appreciate it. Any other, who's next from council?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Alvarez.
Thank you. I'll just say that my sentiments align with Councilwoman Bailey, and I appreciate all of the clarity and questions that she offered now. And with regards to the contingencies we added at the last meeting, they were all added. So I'll rest with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any further from council? Council members? All right, well, let me address some of you may have some problems unmuting. Be pretty confident that the two of you who haven't weighed in yet probably need to, but let me go ahead. In looking at, and I'm going to make reference to the declaration of restrictions, looking specifically at paragraph 7, the obligation to do the entrance feature improvements. There's no outside date. It talks about prior to the issuance of the certificate of completion for the construction of the 38-acre parcel. I was wondering if the applicant would agree to provide that, but in no event not later than the earlier of October 31st next year, or the issuance of the certificate of completion, so that we do have some forward momentum. That is quite a construction undertaking out there, just with the wall and whatever base you're going to put down. And if this does go forward, I would like to see, a little token of sprucing up by a date certain. Is that something that perhaps the applicant could agree to amending the declaration in that manner?
Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, if I may, so I timed it with the completion of construction because the 38-acre parcel site plan approval has an expiration date of a year. So COPART will need to start construction within that time frame. And because they are building a wall and landscaping their site, I wanted it to be timed together so that the work gets done all at the same time and is completed together. So when the site is ready, the Park of Commerce front door is also spruced up and ready. I would say, I know there's an expiration date on the site plan approval to begin pulling permits, but the construction process is, a flexible process. I'm happy to set an outside date, but I don't know exactly what that should be based on the scope of work.
Okay, at the moment, I can't pull out of my brain what your time frame is for pulling permits after site plan approval. Is that a year?
It's within a year, yes.
Okay, so potentially we could be a couple of years out from now, more or less, before we see even a coat of paint and some new lettering on the entrance feature.
It's possible, but probably less than that.
Okay. As to the next paragraph, paragraph 8 on the lake improvements, the paragraph is titled Lake Improvements. And focusing first on if at some point in the future the city passes on the opportunity to take your open water liability and take it as its own and put it on the backs of the taxpayers, this is an agreement basically that says COPART then gets to push the liability for the lake parcel onto all of the Park of Commerce owners. And I'm not really comfortable or certain that that's something the city should be involved in. And I'd like to hear perhaps from, our planner or attorneys and both the applicant as to whether or not that's already something that's built in to the Park of Commerce documents and master plan, or if by approving this declaration of restrictions, we as a city are pushing some financial and actual liability off onto unwitting third parties, if in the event the city doesn't take the parcel for open space or a park.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer that question. So the lake parcel has already been platted as part of the Park of Commerce overall PUD plat. That plat was effectuated in the early 2000s. And in that plat, there is a specific plat restriction that requires that the lake parcel be dedicated as common area and conveyed and maintained by a property owners association. Because the Park of Commerce never got off the ground, it was not until the prior owner of this site that a property owners association was actually created. And the association encompasses effectively the 100 acres that is the subject property of this application and the lake. So it would not be a burden that gets pushed on other owners in the park because they are not actually a part of the property owners association at this point. And it's not foreseeable that they ever would be because it hasn't happened yet. The maintenance would be undertaken by those owners that are part of the association, which would be COPART on the 98 acres and the HPDG entity that owns the 2-acre warehouse building that exists right next to the 38-acre parcel.
Okay, so yeah, I thank you for that clarification. I wasn't certain whether third-party owners in the park have that dormant liability that would all of a sudden be put on them. So it would just be COPART and the HPDG and their successors who would share in that liability for maintenance and hazard and what have you. That does give me a little bit of relief there that sometime in the future somebody can't come here and wag their fingers in our face and say, you did that to us. And to clarify, potentially, it could be 3 years out before the clock even starts running on COPART's construction of the park area if the city were to elect at the last possible moment to accept that dedication. So just to clarify, it's not necessarily going to be something that happens anytime soon, and probably won't even begin until after the mitigation work is done, which I think is at least a couple of years on a good day. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I timed out the date for the final decision by the city with the final plat of the 60-acre parcel, which would not come until the site's been mitigated, a site plan has been approved, tentative plat has been approved, and we start the final plat process. And all in, that is probably about 3 years. Could be sooner if the mitigation goes faster, but my goal was to provide the city with flexibility and time to decide whether a park is appropriate for you. I did a little bit of research as part of that exercise, and your comprehensive plan actually has a requirement that the city should maintain a minimum of 3 acres of parkland for every 1,000 residents. And as of the 2018 count, Homestead has about 70,500 residents and only about 172 acres of park space, where you should have about 211. So we know there's a need for parks, particularly on the east side of the turnpike, but we also acknowledge that the city is not necessarily in a position today to make a decision on whether this is a park that you want. So our goal is to give you that time and flexibility, and I hope that I've accomplished that with this.
Right. But again, just to be clear and to clarify, if the city declines to take ownership of that water body, there's no obligation for that to be open to the public.
There is an obligation for it to become common area for the Park of Commerce.
Right.
So
not the public, yeah.
correct.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to be clear on that you know, it will still be fenced off and not available as purely open public space unless the city accepts it. All right, and then you and I spoke about my final issue with respect to the declaration earlier today, and I wanted to throw this out for members of council who seem to be inclined to approve this. Paragraph 11, section D on page 6 provides that any amendment to this document needs the consent not only of the City Council of the City of Homestead, but of an authorized representative of Homestead Air Reserve Base. It's not something I focused on in the last go around, but it occurred to me that essentially we are abdicating our land use decisions in this instance to the whims of either a military bureaucracy or a civilian employee of Homestead Air Reserve Base. And I am not at all comfortable that, you know, if at some time in the future this needs to be tweaked or released, that we are subject to an unrelated and unelected third party's consent to that modification, amendment, or release. So I want to throw that out to my fellow elected officials to consider in their approval of this whether or not that provision, which would be paragraph 11D, little Roman numeral 1, with respect to the consent of Homestead Air Reserve Base for any future modification. That with that, I just want to reiterate, and I've probably said it before, and at least for another year and a few months, you'll all hear me say it again. For me, it's as important to know why I voted as it is to see how I voted. And first and foremost, I can't support this application because it creates no direct jobs. I think, as we've said, this pandemic has shown really how precarious people's financial and economic situations are. Jobs are tied to quality of life. They're tied to snags in our transportation system. They're tied in large measure to sometimes success in education. And by approving this, we are taking somewhere between 325 and 500 jobs off the table forever in the Park of Commerce. And to me, that's even if your grandest tax estimates over the next 10 years are accurate or conservative, that's just not for me, it's not a balance. We've got to create an economically sustainable community with respect to our residents, and jobs can go so far to help solve the poverty and despair and hunger that exists in our community. I also have deep concerns about environment. And I know there are remediation programs, but once it's spilled, it's spilled. And, you know, I think about, people talk about sea level rise and in hurricanes when we have water come in, and estimates that water will be coming that far inland. If we had a Hurricane Michael or Irma that came in at just the right angle, and let's not kid ourselves, those vehicles still have gasoline and oil and hydraulic fluid and brake fluid and whatever in them, and it's all going to be washed out. So I really have the environmental concerns as well as the traffic concerns. But you know, it's no surprise that I can't support this on this basis, but I would implore my colleagues who do support it to take some of my concerns to heart about some of the items in the proposed declaration of restrictions, particularly as to the consent of Homestead Air Reserve Base for any modifications in the future. So, thank you. Councilman Shelley, any questions or comments?
Mayor, no, I mean, I think we've beat this issue up pretty good over a 3 meeting plus discussion process. So I think all of my prior comments that I've made on the record related to those meetings stand now. So I incorporate those prior comments by reference in this meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Like Councilman Shelley, my comments in the last meeting are still relevant today. My position has not changed, but I did have one question. There was a speaker at the last meeting who mentioned that the trees that were proposed around the property wouldn't provide shade or, I guess, fill in for several years, and he had proposed an alternative. Was that considered?
Ms. Slavin?
If I may, that was exactly considered. We switched the perimeter trees from oak trees to green buttonwood trees. So the green buttonwood, I mentioned it in my presentation, but they grow at a much faster rate than the oak trees, and they actually get a little bit wider. So at maturity, you'll have trees that are about 25 to 30 feet tall with a 20 to 25 foot canopy. And that was a change that we made in the site plan last month.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If there's nothing further from council at this point, let me open up the floor to any member of the public who would like to speak on this matter. So I would defer to our men and women of the IT department to tee them up for us.
Hey, Mayor, thanks. Just again, a reminder, if you're, members of the public, if you want to speak, just raise your hand. And if you're calling in, only just do a *3 on your telephone, and that will raise your hand, and then a *3 again will lower it. First, we have online, Elizabeth still has the hand up, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's still by mistake or if she wants to speak on this item. The timer.
Yes.
Please give us your name and address for the record and go ahead.
Yes. 1240 Northeast 32nd Avenue, Homestead, Florida 33033. My name is Elizabeth Goitia. I'm speaking in favor of this item. I feel it's going to beautify the area a lot. I'm looking forward to having everything cleaned up and landscaped and improved. Currently, I feel it's quite an eyesore, and it's going to be a much better option to have it beautified. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Next.
Okay, next we have Susan Sorrentino.
Hi, good evening, Ms. Sorrentino. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Just 1 second. Let me mute her.
Uh,
Okay, she's up now.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Ms. Sorrentino.
Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
I am just one registered voter in Homestead that signed a petition. There were 939 other people who signed a petition against this. You're kind of fluffing over that who wants it, who doesn't want it, one or two people. But 940 people signed this petition, and it has been submitted to City Council. That's one thing, is that people don't want it. I live on the east side, and the other problem I have, you just kind of fluffed over fire. What happens when the lightning is tremendous over on this side, all of South Florida? What happens if it gets ignited? It was kind of fluffed over that there's an attendant. Well, he's not going to fight a fire of all these vehicles with all these fluids. I've seen photographs of billowing black smoke that certainly goes over an 8-foot wall, goes into our air, pollutes the air, will go into the homes. I'm just afraid something like that will happen and destroy our skies, the schools, the homes. I don't think that was really addressed. And who fights that fire? Is it the Miami-Dade Fire Department going to have to go down there and fight a car fire that's all combustible fluid? That's a problem. So you have 940 people who signed a petition and a potential of a disaster, really. If it catches on fire, you're filling in wetland, which will destroy animal life out there. You don't like to think about, snakes and alligators and birds, lots of birds down there. You don't like to think of those things, but this is our environment. Why would you destroy this for cars? 940 of us don't want it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Sorrentino. Appreciate your comments.
Next we have Bianca.
Hi, good evening. Give us your name and address for the record first, if you would, please.
My name is Bianca Rios. My address is 15541 Southwest 294 Terrace, Homestead, Florida, 33033.
Okay, go ahead.
I've been a resident of Homestead for 13 and a half years, and I'm in support of this application. That's it, nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your input.
Next we have Tina Barker.
Ms. Barker, go ahead. Give us your name and address, please, and go ahead.
Yes, hi. I'm Tina Barker, 626 Northeast 35th Avenue, Homestead, Florida, 33033. I appreciate that this project will aesthetically be attractive and provide an area for first responders to train along with other city functions when not filled with automobile debris following a natural disaster. This project would not impinge on the current traffic patterns on a consistent basis, as other uses of the land would most likely do. If hit with a natural disaster, traffic patterns will be impacted by all the Homestead residents, and normal work hours and school traffic would be suspended anyway until the city recovers, as seen in prior hurricanes that affected us. So I would like to see this project pass tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Joshua Vasquez.
Hi, how's everyone?
Hi, Mr. Vasquez.
Hi, so it's Joshua Vasquez, 992 Northeast, 42 Place. That's Homestead, Florida 33033. And I am currently right now an employee of COPART. I've been living in Homestead for the past couple of years, and honestly, it's been a blessing to be part of this company. We've seen people get hired because of the catastrophes. A lot of the employees that I have in my office are results of that. So honestly, it's something that I know is going to be of a blessing to Homestead. So I honestly support this fully, and I look forward to seeing the rest of the beautiful things that are going to happen in Homestead.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you.
Next, we have Luis Rivera.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Rivera.
Good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Speaking on an issue of COPART, I don't know too much about the company. First of all, 1890 Northeast 37th Avenue in Homestead, Florida 33033. But my main concern with this issue is the future of the city's youth. I myself am a youth sports coach for a local school, Homestead Soho, and I'm also involved in the military kids program, and myself, and I'm a serviceman. But I'm also involved in the after-school nonprofit organization, Soccer League, that takes part in a sports complex. From what I see from the contributions made, I've already seen a significant progress in youth participation. Now, living in Homestead for the past 10 years, I've seen the improvement coming from not just the additions made to the parks, but the involvement because of it from our city's youth. So I'm in favor of it, and that's it. So thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Jasmine Fuentes.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jasmine Fuentes, and my address is 30114 Southwest 158th Court, Homestead, Florida 33033. I am currently employed by COPART, and I've been a resident in Homestead for about 12 years, and as well, I am supportive of this application.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jonathan Molsov.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jonathan Molzoff. I reside at 3143 Northeast 4th Street, Homestead, Florida, 33033. I just wanted to take this time to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the information about the potential for the Amazon coming to Homestead. That is terrific news. Just wanted to share a thought, though. In my opinion, the two projects actually create a trend in big companies coming here. We should embrace both, not one over the other. Supporting both would send a clear signal that Homestead is open for business. Please support this application that is here and now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Molzoff.
Next, we have Nell Coronel.
Hello, yes, my name is Nell Coronel, 24860 Southwest 127th Court, Florida 33032. I've been a resident of Cutler Bay and Homestead for the last 20 years or so. I've also seen the things that COPART has done in the community, and I'm in support of this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Yashawn Vega.
Hello, my name is Deshaun Vega. How's everyone's night going?
Hi, Mr. Vega.
I live on 27707 South Dixie Highway, Unit 306. It's an apartment complex. I've lived in Homestead for about 23 years, and I'm in support of this application. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Next, we have Michelle P.
You there, Michelle?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Michelle Pino. I live at 11794 Southwest 273rd Lane, Homestead, Florida 33032. I've lived at that residence from 1990 to about 2001, and again from 2014 to present. I was actually here for Andrew. I saw the slow recovery of Homestead after that storm, and as a result of Irma, I actually was hired by COPART, so I'm currently employed by them. And I also saw how COPART was able to help after that storm. I actually was out of our house for 6 months after that happened, and there was no access to any of the roads. There was a lot of destruction, and we were actually a huge help to the team. I was here when we sent many tow trucks down there to at least clear out all the vehicles that had been damaged as a result of Irma. So I'm in support.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jody Olson.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Jody Olson. My address is 14920 Southwest 307th Street, Homestead, Florida 33033. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm here to speak in favor of the project again because I fully support COPART and the Air Force Base. While my husband is deployed, I recognize now more than ever the importance of the base. COPART is a strong supporter of the base, and I am a strong supporter of COPART. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Olson.
Next, we have Timothy Forbes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Can everyone hear me fine?
We can, yes. Mr. Forbes.
Awesome. My name is Pastor Timothy Forbes. My address is 25208 Southwest 117 Place, Homestead, Florida 33032. You all may remember that I spoke to you last month in support of this application, and tonight I am again here in support. But I also wanted to ask you to look at the well over 500 signatures collected and turned into staff in support for Homestead's residents who also supported the Air Force Base. As a retired Army sergeant, I'm actively involved and naturally support the base. This is a good project. This is a good deal. This is a good partner. Please vote yes to support COPART. And I just also feel led to say, kudos and my hat's off to the presenter tonight. When you were challenged last month with concerns and questions and things that wanted to be addressed, I just want to say that you did an outstanding job with your presentation, with answering and responding to every single item, even items that were brought up later in regards to fire or first responder issues. That was covered as well. And I just wanted to say very good job, very well put together presentations. Please vote for this this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mayor, we don't have anybody else, so I will ask that whoever participated already. Oh, actually, we just have one more that just got their hand up.
Okay.
Eloy Marquez.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello,
good
everybody.
evening.
My name is Eloy Marquez. I live at 3360 Northeast 14 Drive, Homestead, Florida, 33033. I've been a resident of Homestead about 21 years, and I am in support of this application. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night. Does that conclude those who are you wanting to speak?
We actually just got one right now, Giselle.
Hello.
All right, go ahead. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Giselle. I live in 2811 Southeast 17th Avenue, Unit 110, Homestead, Florida 33035. I've been living as a resident of Homestead for 12 years. I'm an employee at COPART as well, and I am in support of this application.
Thank you. Appreciate your input.
Now that concludes, so please, if you have already participated, lower your hand so it will avoid confusion for the next items coming up. Thanks.
Okay, we'll close the public comments on this matter and ask council if there are any final questions or comments.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilman.
If I can please address Ms. Sorrentino's concern, because I realize I did skip over that fire part a little quickly. And Ms. Labens, if you can help me out, we discussed the proximity of the fire station to the COPART site. Can you speak a little more about that?
So as part of this development, COPART will be paying impact fees for fire to mitigate any new demands on service by paying those impact fees based on the development of the site. In addition, COPART has its own environmental protocols that it follows internally, which includes spill responses, yard prep, fuel tank, which are temporary to use on the mobile command centers, and any burns. Cleaning up and spill prevention are number one priority. If in a worst case scenario event, something is struck by lightning and a fire starts, that would be a time when the site is probably active. So there will be fire prevention materials on site as part of our mobile command center's inventory. But we would also immediately call the fire department, as would any property owner whenever there's a fire. So you'll have effectively a dual level response team, what's there on the ground at the moment, and then what the fire rescue department brings forward. When the site is not active, there will be no vehicles on site, so risk of fire would be minimal. It would maybe be a tree that gets struck by lightning at worst case scenario.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Appreciate it.
Mayor, may I?
Sure, Mr. Councilman Raw.
Thank you. Just a quick thought on the environmental effects that may occur in the water, and maybe Tracy, you can answer this question. When they build out the parking area, knowing that they're going to be storing or potentially storing vehicles that do have existing fluids in them, are they required to put a safety buffer in of some sort and some kind of a fluid containment system on the property?
Yes, there is both. There's yard prep where the groundwork that's done is a surface material that allows for water filtration over the long term, like with a rain event, but has a specific absorbent and spill response technology built into it. We also have our own storm drain systems that will have filters on them, and we will be also making sure that we comply with all of the regulations for DERM, city, and state and federal guidelines. And then lastly, if a car comes in, because I think this is really where the concern lies, if a car comes in that appears to be leaking, or if a leak is discovered, the car is treated immediately. COPART has a program guide that will seal the car to prevent dripping, if anything. And they will also put pads under a car that's been wrapped to ensure that no further dripping is at risk.
So that's interesting. If a car comes in and it's detected that it's leaking fluids, did you say they wrap the car?
Yes.
Interesting. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. Does anyone come online for comments? Any other members of the public? I just want to touch on one thing. I believe it was a member of council, and maybe I'm wrong. I mentioned earlier about the conditions, somebody mentioned the overgrown conditions and the unkempt look in the Park of Commerce. Well, I just want to say again, that's on us. That's our fault. That's code enforcement. Mm-hmm. That's failure to treat everybody equally. We have property owners out there with what I believe is illegally stored fill. We have property owners out there, other property owners who have let their properties become overgrown and they're used improperly. Last time I was out there, we had failed to maintain our rights of way. And I just wanted to say that there is no excuse for the conditions that are out there. I also want to say to COPART and to the owners of the property, our conversations have always been civil, to the point, above board, and I've never made any secret of the fact that my concern, first and foremost, is about jobs. There will be some tax benefit. This is not personal. It's just business. You've been good corporate citizens already, but for me, it comes back to the direct jobs issues. And as one of the few that had to go door to door and talk with residents to earn the right to sit in this seat and vote on your project, I know that that's the jobs issue is almost equal to the issue of traffic nightmare. I wish there was some other location where you could be close by and be part of our community, so that those 100 acres in the Park of Commerce would be available for a more direct job production. But I'm sure you've looked, and that's just not in the cards. So with that, would a member of council wish to make a motion on this matter?
Mayor, before you make the motion, I just wanted to point out one thing as a point of clarification, that there are code violations out there that are in the process of going through the system. So code has been out there, and I know some of those issues that you're talking about, but they have been cited.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that update. That's not something that happened overnight or since this application came into being, but thank you. I'm glad to hear that we're finally calling to task those who don't play by the rules, even when they are big campaign donors. So do we have a motion on this matter?
I'll move it.
Move for approval by Councilman Roth.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. Let's take a roll call vote, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Roth?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher?
No.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Lossner?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So that takes us back to tab 9.
Yes, Mayor. That brings us back to tab 8 and tab 9. Tab 8 is the site plan approval. Tab 9 is the tentative plat. I can introduce both of those titles. You could have a collective public hearing discussion, and then take a separate vote on the site plan followed by the T plat.
All right, let's do that. Thank you, Mr. White.
Right, so tab 8 is a resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting site plan approval requested by COPART of Connecticut, Inc. for the development of a vehicle storage facility, no sales, on an approximately 38-acre parcel of land within the Homestead Park of Commerce, generally located north of Park of Commerce, east of Southwest 152nd Avenue, south of Southeast 14th Street, and west of Southwest 142nd Avenue, as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date. And tab 9 is the resolution of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting tentative replat approval requested by COPART of Connecticut, Inc. for the development of a vehicle storage no-sale facility on an approximately 38-acre parcel of land within the Homestead Park of Commerce, generally located north of Park of Commerce, east of Southwest 152nd Avenue, south of Southeast 14th Street, and west of Southwest 142nd Avenue, as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. And that was tab 8. You want to go ahead and introduce tab 9? That was into the site plan, right? Or did you do both?
I did both, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right. The applicant need to make a presentation? Anything to add?
No, the presentation I made earlier covered all tabs 8, 9, and 10, so they can all be incorporated as part of this record.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate that. I thought so. Council members? All right. Was there anyone lined up to make a public comment?
Mayor, I see Elizabeth.
Let me get back to Mr. Cordino. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Perhaps we should hear from the planning department just as part of the record again. Mr. Cordino.
Sorry, Mayor. I'm just getting unmuted. Again, the staff recommends that the mayor and council deny the site plan and the plat request to develop this vehicle storage facility in the Park of Commerce. Again, as we've said along the whole time, we don't believe that this request is permitted within the Park of Commerce master plan. It's inconsistent with the intent, the character, the development, and the environmental aspects, the scale of the Park of Commerce master plan. So we don't believe that the Park of Commerce master plan is intended to contemplate vehicle storage as their junkyards, so we're recommending denial.
Thank you, Mr. Cordino. Appreciate that. All right. Council, any questions, comments, or would anyone like to make a motion to approve the site plan request?
Mayor, James here, if I might. In the conversation that we previously had with the legislative item, Councilman Bailey brought up the issue with respect to a condition related to enforcement to ensure compliance with the environmental standards, regulations, permits. So if Councilman Bailey would like, I could read a proposed condition to be added to the site plan. If you would like me to do that.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. White.
So the proposed condition would be that the applicant shall provide that an official inspector of the city or its agents duly authorized may have the privilege of any time during normal working hours of entering and inspecting the property to ensure compliance with all applicable federal, state, county, and city environmental regulations, standards, permits, and permit conditions. And I would also offer, Mayor, Council, if there's a motion to approve the site plan, that the motion for approval is subject to the proper declaration of restrictions, and we would attach that as an exhibit to the resolution approving the site plan and the T-plat.
Right. Thank you, Mr. White. Because we need to hear from the applicant as to this additional language regarding inspections.
We agree.
Thank you.
Mayor?
All right. So, Mr. White, do we need to vote on the T-plat or the site plan first?
The site plan first, Mayor.
Okay. All right, ready. And that would incorporate the additional inspection language, correct?
That would incorporate the condition language that I just read, and I would also proffer that if there is a motion to approve, that it includes that language as a condition and is also subject to the proper declaration of restrictions that we discussed in the legislative item just a moment ago.
All right, thank you. Would a member of council wish to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Councilwoman Avila. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bailey. So it's been moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilwoman Bailey.
Mayor, I
Well,
have some discussion if you don't mind.
So it's the site plan approval with the inspection language and with the condition of the declaration of restrictions approved on the previous item. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. With regard to your recommendation on 11D, I have a question on that. If I can have Mr. White answer some questions on the verbiage relating to the HARB.
Well, I'd love to have that conversation, but that was approved. That item was approved without any movement whatsoever from the six of you.
Right, but aren't we also modifying the verbiage with regards to the
This is on the site plan, not the declaration of restrictions. That was approved without amendment. So we now have a new co-city manager who resides out of the base, I guess. I appreciate it, though. So we have a motion and a second to approve the site plan with the inspection language and subject to the declaration of restrictions. Council members? IT, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter?
Mr. Mayor, I see that Timothy Forbes still have the hands up, but I don't know if that's from before or if you wish to speak on this item.
Well, let's check just to be sure.
Okay, he's unmuted.
No, I apologize. That's a mistake.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Forbes. All right, so we'll close the public hearing, and if there's nothing further from council on the site plan approval, let's have a roll call vote.
Councilman Fletcher?
No.
Councilman Fletcher? Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Rod? Councilman Ross?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Lossner?
No. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
And, yes, was that you, Mr. Fletcher?
Yes, if you'll excuse me, I have to step off for a work discussion on an emergent issue. I'll try and log back in as soon as I possibly can.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. We'll note that. All right, so now we are on to item tab 9, the T-plat for the COPART project. Mr. Cordino?
Yes, sir. On tab 9, we are recommending that the mayor and council deny the tentative plat for the this use in the Park of Commerce. For the reasons we gave before, we don't believe that the use is currently permitted in the Park of Commerce, and we don't believe that vehicle sales, storage, or junkyards are in line with the vision of the Park of Commerce Master Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Cordino.
You're welcome.
Do we have a motion on tab 9, T-plat approval for the COPART project?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Bailey.
Mayor, just for clarification, the motion for approval includes the same conditions that we noted for the site plan.
Okay, thank you. Is that acceptable to the maker of the motion?
It is.
Those were your items, okay. Mr. Roth, are you trying to chime in to second, I think?
I did. Yes, I did.
Okay, I think, at least on my end, you and Mr. White's talking kind of cross beams there, and I wasn't sure. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone in line from the public?
No, Mr. Mayor, we don't have anybody from the public.
All right, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll ask for a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Ross?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers? Vice Mayor? Vice Mayor Fairclough? Mayor Lawson?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, so I think we are back into legislative matters with the first reading for tab 12, car number 2930. Is that you, Mr. Pearl?
Mayor, this is James. This is the tab 12, the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, adopting an amendment to the Water Supply Facilities Work Plan and to amend the City of Homestead Comprehensive Plan to strengthen coordination between water supply and local land use planning by amending the text contained in the infrastructure, conservation, intergovernmental coordination, and capital improvement elements, providing for transmittal of the certified copies of this ordinance and the comprehensive plan to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and all other units of local government or governmental agencies as required under Chapter 163, Part 2, Florida statutes, providing for adoption pursuant to Section 163, 3184 Florida statutes, providing for inclusion in the City of Homestead Comprehensive Plan, providing for repeal of conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Thank you, Mr. White. Do you have any questions or comments from council? We have a motion for approval.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Bailey. I heard a staticky second. I'm sorry, I didn't catch who that was. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right. Do we have any public comments on this item?
No public comments.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the public hearing and ask for a roll call vote.
Councilman Ross?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher? Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Vice Mayor Fairclough Daggett?
Yes.
Mayor Lawson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, tab 13, Car number
Yes.
2854. Mr. White?
Yes, Mayor. Moving on to tab 13. This is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending Chapter 6, Building and Building Regulations, Article 7, Flood Damage Prevention, by repealing Article 7, Flood Damage Prevention, and replacing with regulations that comply with the participating criteria, the National Flood Insurance Program, and flood management-related requirements of the state of Florida, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
Thank you. Council? Questions or comments on this matter? We have a motion for approval on item 13. First reading.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Reyes. We have a second.
Mayor, Mayor?
Yes.
I'm just curious, should staff be reading this stuff into the record?
Mr. White did for us.
I don't know about this.
Mayor and council members, there's not a requirement for it. If you have specific questions or you'd like staff to make a presentation, you can. If not, there's no problem with accepting the materials that are in the packet as the record and moving forward without discussion.
Gotcha. You get used to hearing people read the stuff that's written in the book. So if it's not necessary, it's okay by me. I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Staff have anything to add or any background that you can share with us and the public on this matter?
Yes, sir. Again, we're recommending approval. Every now and then it's necessary that we make sure that our ordinances and codes are current with the state building code. And that's really what we did here. There's really not necessarily significant changes, but what this does do is help us stay in favor with the state and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. So when they evaluate our community rating system, we're able to take advantage of perhaps additional credits, which results in a tax break for the citizens dealing with flood insurance when we deal with the community rating system. So that's kind of what this is.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gordino.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that clarification. Any further questions from council? We had a motion and a second already, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone who wishes to be recorded as a no vote on the floodplain management ordinance, tab 13? Okay. So motion is carried. And then we have a second reading, looks like chapter 14 on the janitorial services. Is that you, Madam Manager?
Yes, sir, it is. That would be me. On February 21st, 2020, the Procurement and Contract Services Division issued invitation to bid ITB number 202003, janitorial services for citywide janitorial services at all city facilities listed on the ITB. Notices were sent to over 323 vendors and 7 responses were received. After thorough review, Miami Janitorial Supplies, Inc. was found to be the most responsible bidder. As part of this award, Miami Janitorial Supplies, Inc. will be required to refurnish all labor, equipment, and materials. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the City Manager to award ITB 202003 janitorial services to Miami Janitorial Supplies, Inc. for the estimated annual expense of $142,140. This is a 2-year agreement with the option to renew for 3 additional 1-year periods upon the same terms and conditions and the mutual written consent of both parties.
Thank you, Madam Manager. And this is what was alluded to a couple of weeks ago in our budget workshop as one of the potential cost savings.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Do you have a motion for approval?
I'll move it.
Okay. So moved by Councilman Roth, second by Councilwoman Avila. Any further discussion, questions? Anyone wish to be reflected as a no vote on the adoption of the janitorial services proposal for the coming year? All right, good, thank you. Motion carries. All right, who's got the resolutions?
That would be me, Mayor.
All right, so you're here, okay. Hello, Mr. Pearl.
Hello. Tab 15 is the resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving an interlocal agreement for a federally funded subaward with Miami-Dade County for the reimbursement of expenses incurred due to the novel coronavirus disease 2019, pursuant to the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Any background, Madam Manager, on this one?
I did want to mention a couple of things, Mayor, because it's not entirely clear yet when and how CARES Act funding will be released. And this ILA is not something that's being individually negotiated. It's something that the county put out for each city. So there's a meeting tomorrow for questions and answers with the county and all the city managers to be able to understand better what's going to happen. Of the $100,000, we know that $75,000 is earmarked for reimbursement after FEMA reimbursement. So we have to submit to FEMA first for certain expenditures. But the $25,000 is earmarked for programs that directly impact people. And we believe that our CRA grants, as well as the $35,000 we have earmarked to the health program that's administered by Mujer, will be funds that are millions, not thousands. Sorry, $100 million, not thousands. But we believe the $35 million that's been earmarked for our health program administered by Mujer will be something that will be reimbursed for with this money. So correct my $1,000, everyone, to $1 million.
It's just a well-placed zero.
Yeah, it's just a couple more zeros. And these programs, I point this out now because we have to submit our programs to the county by September 15th. So there's a very short window within which we have to do this. But we do recommend that the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter into the interlocal agreement with Miami-Dade County for the reimbursement of expenses incurred due to the coronavirus disease 2019, pursuant to the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act.
Thank you, Madam Manager. And for my colleagues who may not be aware, I'm sure most of you are, if not all, it's just been a moving target of when and if and how. And I think the rules evolve every day, and and that was after the battles of how much money was going to be allocated to municipalities. So, do we have any discussion or a motion for approval on tab 15?
I'll move it.
Okay. Councilwoman Bailey moved it, and because she beat Councilman Roth to the punch, so he'll be deemed the second. Does anyone wish to be recorded as a no vote on tab 15, the resolution, the interlocal agreement with Miami-Dade County for the CARES Act dollars? All right, none appearing then, this item is approved. Next item, tab 16. Is that you, Mr. Pearl?
Yes, sir. Tab 16 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the settlement of all claims by CRISTAL YELLEN, providing for implementation, providing for an effective date. The council held an executive session on this. It deals with the settlement of claims arising from personal injury that was the result of an auto accident with a city employee.
Thank you. Council? Moved by Councilman Roth.
Second.
Second by, I think that was Councilwoman Bailey. Does anyone wish to be recorded as a no vote on this settlement of case of Yellen versus the City of Homestead? Motion carries. Next item, tab 17, Mr. Pearl.
Tab 17 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the settlement of all claims, including the workers' compensation claim of Godfrey ROLLE, and providing for an effective date. Again, this is the settlement of all claims resulting from a shoulder injury incurred by a former city employee. The settlement is intended to cover his medical expenses and extinguish future claims for that injury.
Thank you. Council? We have a motion for approval of the ROLLE versus City of Homestead settlement, tab 17.
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Ross.
I'll be the seconder thing.
All right, you're going to chime in for a second. All right, does anyone wish to be recorded as a no vote on part number 2966 and settlement of the case of ROLLE versus the City of Homestead? Motion carries unanimously. And then tab 18, is this yours, Ms. Driver?
Well, actually, Mayor, I can read this one. This is a companion item to the CRA item. I'll just, for the purposes of getting it into the record, I'll just read the item. This is regarding the interlocal agreement for the extension of the CRA. On May 27, 2020, the CRA board authorized staff to move forward and submit an application to Miami-Dade County to extend the CRA an additional 30 years. As a result, the attached interlocal agreement has been prepared in order to delineate the county, cities, and CRA's areas of responsibilities with respect to the redevelopment of the CRA area. Also included in the ILA is the county's proposal to disperse $5.7 million to the city to fund the city's debt service and construction costs incurred in association with the transit and transportation components of the Homestead multimodal project. The county shall use the 25% transportation tip to recapture the $5.7 million disbursement from the SMART TID. The transportation tip shall be the sole source of revenue for the recapture of the disbursement made by the county. After the disbursement has been recaptured, the county will continue to receive 15% of the transportation tip, and the CRA will receive 10% to be used for SMART plan-related projects. Staff recommends the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement in Miami-Dade County for the extension of the Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency until September 30th, 2051.
Thank you, Madam Manager. And I guess we need to have Mr. Pearl read the title into the record.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the restated interlocal cooperation agreement related to the City of Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency with Miami-Dade County, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you. Council?
Move it.
Moved by Councilman Ross.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Bailey. Would any member of council wish to be recorded as a no vote on tab 18, the extension of the CRA by interlocal agreement with Miami-Dade County? None appearing. Motion carries. All right. Madam Manager, are you going to take tab 19?
Yes, Mayor. We will show a brief presentation with regard to our electric utility rate reduction.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of Council, and citizens of Homestead. I'm Barbara Quinones, Director of the Energy Division of Homestead Public Services, and it's an honor to speak with you tonight. At a City Council meeting last November, our Council requested an analysis of the impact of the new power contracts on our energy rates. Well, I'm happy to be here today and to be able to report to you that we have great news for Council to share. That great news is that our energy rates will be going down. Homestead will be seeing the lowest price energy since 2004. Not only will the rates be dropping soon, but I'd like to share with you our history of lowering your rates. In Homestead, the last increase to the electric rate was in 2008. Since then, the rates have been lowered 5 times for a total overall savings on a residential energy bill of 9.7%. And let's compare that to the average consumer price index, or CPI. We know that the CPI tells us how much more our life costs from year to year It measures the effect of inflation on goods and services. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the CPI has gone up 20% since 2008. And on the other hand, your electric rates in that same period of time have dropped by almost 10%. And now with our new power contracts, you'll see even more savings. How have we been able to lower our prices? Well, we've seen savings through smart shopping on the open power market, which means using the lowest cost power resources first. And we've seen savings through cost cutting accomplished by improving processes and implementing new technologies. Improvements in the smart shopping area over the last few years are linked to the expertise of our employees who manage the daily, weekly, and monthly purchases and sales of power on the spot market. As you can see, this is not a simple task. Another way we've achieved cost savings is through improving processes. In the last 10 years, the number of employees in the energy division has held steady, while the population we serve has actually increased by 23%. This type of improvement is only possible when processes are streamlined and new technologies are implemented that simplify or automate activities that were previously performed manually. There's definitely more work, but we're being smarter about how we do things. And starting in September, the rate will go down again. We'll see another drop of 12%. That translates into an additional $14 a month savings for the average residential bill. And how are we able to reduce rates another 12%? The upcoming reduction in September comes as a result of actively pursuing the best prices and contracts available in the purchase power market. Homestead put out a request for proposals and received over 25 proposals from different companies throughout the southeastern United States. Then a review committee spent many hours analyzing the pros and cons of each proposal to come up with the best choices for council to consider. Following negotiations, council approved 2 new contracts with excellent pricing in November of 2019, and the new contracts have been in effect now for several months. Based on our review of the new pricing, staff has determined we're able to pass along significant savings to our citizens. As the cost reduction is linked to reduced cost for power generation, you'll be able to see the reduction on the energy fuel cost line of your utility bill. With this change to the rate, you may be wondering how Homestead will compare to other electric utilities in the state. You can see that we'll have one of the lowest rates in the state of Florida after implementing this change. And our new rate is also projected to be lower than our neighboring electric utility, FPL. With the reduction seen over the last few years, added to the upcoming reduction in September, your electric charges will have dropped over 21% since 2008. In comparison, the average cable bill has gone up by 50% in the same time frame. You may think that with such a great achievement, we're going to sit back and rest on our laurels, but that's not the case. We'll continue to look for more opportunities to reduce costs. And we do have challenges. The truth is we have certain constraints with some of the long-term power contracts that were put in place in the past. Some of them date back to the 1980s. But our staff remains dedicated to identifying any and all potential ways to reduce the costs associated with existing contracts, as well as continuing to reduce costs through process improvements and technological advances. Other ways citizens can lower their bills are by reducing their energy consumption through the installation of energy-efficient appliances or by changing their consumption habits. We offer our customers free home energy surveys where an energy expert goes to the home to look for ways to help save more on the energy bill. During the COVID crisis, these surveys can also be performed remotely if desired. Energy-efficient rebates are also available through the city for certain items. So please go to the website for additional information on both the energy surveys and the energy-efficient rebates. The employees of Homestead Public Services Energy Division are proud to be members of this community and proud to be your neighbors. We will continue working hard to keep lowering energy rates. Thank you all for taking the time to listen this evening. And a special thank you to our mayor, vice mayor, and council members for your support.
Thank
That's
you.
the end of our
Appreciate it.
presentation. We're here to answer any questions you may have.
Council?
I have one comment, Mr. Mayor. What seems like eons ago, my last council presentation, I had the energy efficiency program director there with me because I do believe that it's a great program. I wanted to learn more about it, so I had them come out to both my house and my school, and just with a few simple tricks, especially with the school. Little things like not turning all your lights on at the same time in the morning, to leaky faucets. It was really helpful. So thank you, Ms. Quinones. That was very informative, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Council.
Mayor.
Any further from council? So this was informational for us and for the public as to what we can see in our bills next month.
Yes, sir.
Every little bit helps. Not only at home, but here as we do our city budget. So thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No further business from the city manager?
No, Mr. Mayor, nothing further.
Any further from the city attorney?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just announce an executive session in the matter of Turner v. the City of Homestead. It's case number 118CB005, DPG. It's in the United States District Court of the Southern District. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, reports of mayor and council. Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, a big thank you to our community police and the Southwest Advisory Committee. We had a really successful book bag and supply giveaway this past Saturday at the PAL. Art Walk Homestead, we had a little bit left in our budget. We were not able to do the Art in the Park festival that we typically do in May at Blakey Park. So we invested in some really nice art kits as well as a free virtual art class for our kids. And we held the art class that Sunday. It was very fun, and we hope to do another one very soon. One reminder to everyone to please donate blood as often as possible. If you have successfully beat COVID, especially plasma is very much needed right now. There is a plasma center on Maui Drive that you can get paid for. So you can check them out or go to the trucks that are in front of Best Buy. The last thing is good luck to our students and teachers, and especially the parents, to these next couple of weeks of virtual online learning. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Ron?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give a shout out to the Office of the Clerk, Elizabeth, Jalissa, Monica, and Liz, for all the hard work they've been putting in and preparing the minutes. I know it's been challenging. Some of those meetings have been very long. I just want to let them know how much they're appreciated by me, and I'm sure by all of us. That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Ross. Councilwoman Avila?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple items. First, I want to wish good luck to all the parents who will be starting school very soon. Very intimidating times, but we'll get through it. And there will be some school supplies being given away in communities, so please keep an eye out for those notifications. Also, I wanted to thank the staff and council members who helped with the food distribution event, which was held in District 5 last Friday. It was a collaborative effort between donors, the city, multiple nonprofit organizations, and the Malibu Bay community, which was gracious enough to open their gates to host the event.
It was a success by many standards, and the residents are very grateful for the unexpected blessing of taking home a hot meal, gallons of milk, fruits and veggies for free. The only thing I was disappointed about was that it did end much sooner than I expected, which indicated to me that the need is much greater than I anticipated. So I'm doing it again. So this Saturday at 10 a.m., we're partnering with Farm Share, and I will be able to serve double, if not triple, what was available at the last one. And in all the years that I have been a resident on the east side, I have never seen a food distribution in my community, so I'm proud to be able to bring this opportunity to the backyard of the residents in District 5. And yes, Mayor, I was able to distribute the literature regarding completing the census to every recipient, and I will do it again. And I want to thank Councilwoman Bailey for her advice on working with local mom and pop restaurants to help fund the hot meals. So thank you for that success. And then my last item, I sit on the Military Housing Task Force, which falls under the Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Committee. And this committee is currently focused on establishing rental assistance program within South Dade. Now, is there something for us to discuss? Do you want me to bring that up now or later?
No, go ahead. Now's the time.
Thank you. So this committee is focused on establishing rental assistance, as I mentioned, to families relocating here, either relocating for new orders or transitioning between homes within the community. And I'm presenting before you a resolution to consider, which is similar to that which was passed a few weeks ago by the municipality in Cutler Bay. I would like for us to provide an opportunity for Chamber Board member Mr. Julio Guzman to speak on this item and answer any questions you have about what it means to go from military friendly to being military ready, and what that means for our city and South Dade, as well as our valued servicemen and women and their families. So if he's available and we can hear him, now would be the time.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening.
Ahead. You're good.
Good evening, Mayor Lazar. Good evening, Councilwoman Avila, Council to the Homestead, and staff. Just to give you an idea of what we've done and what we've created with the help of Councilwoman Avila, is for years, the military has advised the Chamber of the high initial move-in cost when it's compared to their basic housing allowance. So 3 months ago, the Chamber created a military housing task force that included members on the federal level, the local level, the military command, the Miami Association of Realtors, community leaders, and Councilwoman Avila. We held weekly Zoom meetings and began identifying problems and solutions. The outcome of those meetings was the creation of the military housing rental program. It allows private property owners to advertise their properties as military ready. Property owners agree to only charge the first month's rent and a security deposit, and they agree to waive credit checks. We already have over 150 properties participating in this program. With all of the enthusiasm and attention being brought to this initiative, the Town of Cutler Bay made the initial step to create a resolution supporting this program. So I want to thank Mayor Mirbach, Vice Mayor Loisel, the Cutler Bay Council, and City Manager Ralph Casals. The goal of this program is to bring awareness and to all municipalities that we want to make sure we do what we can to help the military. So this program creates a better quality of life for our military, and it places Miami-Dade in a much better light when we are now being considered for Space Command. So I'm open to answer any questions you guys have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman. I appreciate it. I know you've been working on this a long time. We've had discussions as to other ways we can supplement this, and hopefully we can go forward with that as well. Council members? Then do we, as Mr. Pearl, is it appropriate for us to move and adopt this resolution tonight under the Councilwoman's business?
Mayor.
Yes, Councilwoman.
I'll just say that, thank you for the time and your attention to you and the council. And I do support passage of the resolution. I believe doing so sends the right message that clearly expresses that our city recognizes the value of this initiative and is willing to participate in the effort of connecting affordable housing with our service members and our community. So with that, I'll make the motion to pass the resolution, if that's what's appropriate at this time.
And I'll happily second that motion.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mayor, I was on mute. I couldn't get off of mute for a second. I'll just read the title into the record, and then we can hold the vote since we have the motion in second. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, supporting the Cascade Chamber of Commerce's Military Affairs Committee's establishment of a military housing rental assistance program within the Cascade to assist active military members, reservists, veterans, and their families to obtain affordable housing, providing for transmittal and providing for an effective date.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, Mr. Roth, Councilman Roth.
Thank you. No, I'm in support of this. I just have a question about the program itself and how, if a owner would like to participate in a program like this, how would they, who would they contact to either register a property? And are there guidelines as far as the participation, as far as some of the things that were mentioned, like credit reports and first month's rent and last month or security deposits, just whatever the program requirements would be for an owner to participate in the program?
Great question, Councilman Roth. I think the listing agent of that homeowner would be able to contact the military housing task force directly, and then they'll be directed on how to assist their client with registering the property with the program.
Do you have a contact or an email, or how do they find that organization?
Mr. Guzman, can you share? You might still be on mute. What I can do is I can provide Mr. Julio Guzman's phone number.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay.
So to answer Councilman Roth's question, they would contact the Military Affairs Committee or the Chamber, and we would direct that homeowner on exactly what to do. So where we're at now, the Military Housing Task Force has also partnered with the residential board of the Miami Association of Realtors to add a lot of meat and a lot of details to exactly what the program is going to consist of. So it's going to be extremely clear for a homeowner to say, what are the rules and regulations that I'm abiding by? And it's going to be very clear for that service member to understand what he is also abiding by. So now with the, with all of the resources that the Miami Association of Realtors has, their attorneys, all of those bright minds, I think we're on the right track to getting this, to pushing this initiative through. Thank you.
All I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. Appreciate it. All right, so we have a motion and a second, and be pretty confident that there wouldn't be any member who would want to be registered as a no vote on this resolution. So thank you, former councilman and councilwoman for bringing this forward. I know that there's a lot of work being done to posture South Florida, Southeast Florida in its entirety to be in contention for further military installation in the arena of the Space Force, which is really not out of the realm of reality, and we are taking the lead on that with this. So thank you. All right, Councilman Fletcher, have you returned? Guess not. Councilman Shelley?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Vice Mayor Fairclough-Staggers?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share some information for families who have children preparing for back to school. Our public schools and perhaps some charter private schools will be heading back to school on August 31st. The public school system will be heading back virtually on August 31st, but in preparation for that, the Miami-Dade County Public School System will be hosting a week of welcome beginning on Monday, August 24th. And this will,
Can I read my statement of appreciation now?
can you hear me? I hear Tom.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay,
And
so
Mr.
the
Guzman needs to mute himself.
Yes, somebody has to mute. The week of welcome will begin on August 24th, and this will encompasses activities and a week-long orientation tailored to help students and families prepare for the school year. It is critically important for families to engage in the week of welcome beginning on Monday to get oriented to the K-12 online platform that will be utilized for instruction for the entire school year. So for more information on the week of welcome, there is a website, miamiweekofwelcome.com, for all families to engage in next week in order to ensure success for their child on August 31st. Additionally, the school system has a very comprehensive reopening of schools plan that is all-encompassing as it relates to mental health, signage in schools, the curriculum. If families want information as it relates to that comprehensive plan, the website is reopening.dadeschools.net, and there all the information will be available. Myself, or my office, in collaboration with the Mayor's Youth Council, as well as the Education Committee, we will be providing brand new laptops to needy families in our community to assist with decreasing the digital desert and to allow them to be able to access their learning content for the My School Online K-12 application. The information for the laptops will be on our website, perhaps by the end of this week, for those families to apply in order to receive a brand new laptop. These will be awarded on a random selection process. It is not a first come, first serve, because oftentimes the neediest families get the information last. So we will be encouraging all of the families to go onto the city's website in order to apply for the brand new laptops to assist with back to school. Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing further.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a couple of items, hopefully quick items. The first is, I guess what we're looking for is a confirmation or not of the will of council for the ad hoc charter committee to continue with its work along the lines of some of the issues that were disclosed that the committee wished to look into, as well as continue its work in going through the charter and identifying any other issues and clean up issues that would be necessary as a result of the potential work that might be approved. No one on the committee has indicated that they do not wish to continue as a member, and I just need some direction or consensus from council, some feel from council as to whether or not the committee should continue to go forward to bring back some additional proposals for consideration at an election at a determined date in the future.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think it's very helpful to have a committee that can help bring up items for us to consider and discuss. I would be in agreement with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree, Mayor, as well.
Thank you. Appreciate
If we can just allow more time in between discussion and then motioning, that would also be helpful, so we can be able to digest all the feedback we get and bring it back for voting.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And also in that regard, I would encourage you. We talked about potential shifting of the year of our elections to an even number year, single member districts, and I think Councilman Shelley mentioned potentially looking at campaign finance reform. To the extent that you have any thoughts of something that each of you would like the committee to consider taking a look at, please submit that through your assistant to my council assistant so that can be put before the committee so that we can have certainly have a comprehensive comprehensive look in that regard, so that we don't come to the end and have the, well, what about this moment? So I if we're going to go forward, I would certainly appreciate that.
I'm in favor of moving forward with that as well.
Thank you, Councilman Roth.
I agree as well, Mayor, and I support that 100%.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Vice Mayor. Mr. Shelley,
Mayor.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes, no, I support go ahead and continuing the Charter Review Committee. I think one of the things too I'd request is to build in some time, at the end, as you guys have finished discussion and coming up with some ideas and recommendations, to build in some time to possibly do some citywide workshops to kind of vet those through the community before it ultimately comes back to the council for final decision making on pushing those forward to a ballot or not. I think they've done that in the past. I think it's a helpful process to have some of the community members have a specific meeting where it's not as you're making the ideas up, but you come up with the ideas, and now it's letting the community kind of weigh in specifically on those. So if we could build some of that into the end of the process before being submitted to us and ultimately us submitting it to the voters, I'd appreciate that as well.
Absolutely, and that would be my goal to do that. Certainly, that's been my experience with committees I've chaired in the past, and I know we all look forward to the day where we can have in-person interaction with our residents and have that very valuable, personal discussion all together at the same time in the same room. So I appreciate that. So we'll let the committee know and begin to go forward then. And then finally,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Just as it's a formality now because it seems that everybody's on board with this. The resolution that established the committee said that it would be disbanded following final consideration. Can we just, unless extended by the council, can we just have a motion to extend it? It sounds like everybody's in favor, but if I could just ask the motion, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
I'll second.
And we have a second from Councilwoman Avila. All in favor? Aye. All right. And then
thank you.
The last item I have, this is the ratification of the reappointment of a Police Pension Board trustee, Officer Ron Qualley, to the board. That is a seat that is designated by the other members, but we need to ratify that action. So if we could have a motion in ratification of the board's reappointment of Ron Qualley as a member of the Police Pension Board.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councilman Roth. You have a second? I'll second it. Anyone wish to be recorded as a no? All right, thank you all. Is there anything further from any corner of the room, so to speak? We have a motion to adjourn.
Move it and have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Appreciate it. I know I heard 6 other seconds. Thank you all. Good night. Meeting adjourned.